Shalom, family. Good to see everybody here. I hope everyone is doing well. Well, since the fire in Nottoway, it's been a lot of mixed reaction. And the ones that seems to be the biggest that are upset are your what people call white supremacists. There's nothing supremacist about these people for real. There is nothing supremacist about them, and they seem to be the most upset and talking about history. I said, y'all are nothing but one big walking contradiction. On one hand, you don't want to hear about the history, but on the other hand, you want to go to plantations and enjoy yourself and have weddings and vacations and spa days and all that stuff at a plantation. You know, if why don't y'all have your weddings at Outwits? Okay, you can do that as well. Why don't you go down in the middle of New York and have your wedding where 9/11 happened? How come you won't go down there and have your wedding? Y'all are a trip. We know why you want to relive those glory days that are never ever going to come back again. You can get all that crap out of your head. We are not going to be enslaved, and our people, because we do have some people running around here say they can put us back in slavery. No, they gonna put your ass back in slavery. They ain't putting me or not the kind of people I know ain't going back in no slavery. You're the one, since you're the one thinking they can have the ability to do that, you're the one going into slavery. They ain't snatching up all of us talking about some you're going back. Anybody walking around and think that, just put yourself under that sentence. You're going back into slavery because the rest of us aren't. Okay, say it the right way. So, y'all, it has been a trip. Yes, I've been looking at some of the videos now. A lot of them I did like, but I can't play those for you because of the mainstream music that they have on there. The fire, I heard that one on, and quite a few different mainstream songs. So, but the videos were definitely entertaining, but because of YouTube and their policies, I cannot play those kind of videos. So all of the ones that I'll be showing you are, for the most part, just people talking about the plantation. Now, everybody's not upset that that plantation is gone. I noticed the ones that are upset are in the very minority. You know, it seems like the majority of the people, they are saying they're glad that that place is gone. And even I was listening to some people and they were saying they went down there as children and they had an eerie feeling when they were down there. And I said, yeah, usually, if it's a place where it was a lot of death and destruction, yeah, you're going to feel that. You are. And the messed up part is how these folks, like if you go on Nottoway website, they don't even have the word slavery on there. They had completely whitewashed that place. And I did see that tour guide they had, and she made it seem like they were just so loving and caring and just took such good care of the slaves, and they just loved them slaves and they wouldn't hurt a hair on their head. And we know damn well that's not how y'all acted back then. Okay, y'all did not love those slaves just like you don't love us today. You don't love us today, and you did not love my people back then. Give me a break with that stuff. But the way she gave that tour guide was downright laughable. Oh, and then they kept families together, because they thought the slaves would be better off if they just stayed together. Y'all didn't do stuff like that. It was nothing for y'all to sell children right from under parents. You did that mess all the time. Come on, now all of a sudden you cared so much about the slave family structure. You didn't care then and you don't give a shit now. So let's do this before we get started, this is just a reminder. The shampoo is on sale this week, and there's still many left, so you can run out there and get yours. Um, and remember just to use the promo code shampoo20 at checkout to get your 20% off. All right. Okay, so let's get to it. All right, hold on one second. All right. Okay, please give me a one if you can see my screen. Give me a one if you can see the screen. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
I just found out that that plantation was a spa. Who is get? Mm. So where I live, we had a massive race riot. Um, and it was awful. It was horrific, and we tried to cover it up. And I think that's distasteful. The South is crazier because they're like, hey, we did actual crimes, like science experiments on Black people here. We forced them to do labor. We separated them from their families, etc., etc., etc. Do you want to get a massage? What? Anyways, good riddance to bad rubbish. I hope they never rebuild it. I hope that everybody who suffered there is finally in heaven at peace. I hope that they have endless joy. Wow, what? And this is low key why we need reparations.
Okay, so fun story. In 2016, I actually visited the Nottoway Plantation. I was so happy to see yesterday on social media that it had burned down. And if you don't know the history of the Nottoway Plantation, it was built in peak antebellum 1859. I've researched a lot about this plantation because I was working on a story that I still want to turn into something. I'm not sure what yet. A rewritten version of Beauty and the Beast that involves the horrors of slavery. I feel like it's my duty as someone whose family contributed, because my family was part of my ancestry was part of the family that owned the Belle Grove plantation, which is just a few miles from where Nottoway was. Belle Grove burned down similarly years and years ago in, I think, the 1950s. They actually had multiple fires and it burned down kind of in stages. So I was researching Belle Grove, and we went to Nottoway because Belle Grove is no longer standing, and it was done by a similar architect so that I could get the same kind of feel for the house and everything. But as we were there, I couldn't help but feel like this just sick feeling, knowing that hundreds of slaves had built this mansion and worked it and died and suffered at this place. And so while we were there, we actually visited this little graveyard on the property. And I just tried to take a moment to kind of like honor those people who have been lost to the horrors of slavery that our country inflicted, that my family historically inflicted, and the shame of that and the guilt of that. And it's one of the things that pushed me into writing this story and trying to challenge and face any sort of internal bias that I might have, that I've been raised with in the South. And um, so yesterday, when I got online and I saw that the Nottoway Plantation had burned down, it filled me with so much like sweet justice, because they never deserved that life. And to see it in ashes and cinders now just makes me happy. And I hope that it's one step towards reclamation for the people that my historic lineage hurt, killed, enslaved, tortured, raped, abused. And I'm so thankful it burned down. I know a lot of other people are freaking out, but it's just architecture. You can rebuild it. You can rebuild it and tell a new story, a better story without slavery. And actually, if we could build a monument there, maybe to the people who were slaves in that region, why not do that? Why not? We should. We owe it to them, to their family members and their descendants who were standing on the bank and cheering and screaming in joy yesterday. We have to write a better story. So I'm glad that at least this one begins with the burning down of that plantation, because that's fucking justice.
To stay with me, because there is some things about this resort and 4-star hotel that burned down that nobody is talking about, and my jaw was literally on the floor. It's very clear that it being a museum is not its main focus. It does seem like they've started giving tours again, but this is for weddings and events. They do have a history tab and a drop-down menu. The only thing you're going to find is a list of 16 majestic oak trees that are found on the property. These oak trees are named, and for a brief moment I was like, oh, are they named after enslaved people? Is this like a memorial? No, it's named after the 11 children of the enslaver. As I was combing through trying to find any information on the enslaved people here, this tab for cottages underneath where you can stay caught my eye. Each cottage has 2 individual units with a single covered porch and oversized rocking chairs, and it's like, oh my god, how tasteless to have something like that on the property given the history. No, I don't think these are fresh cottages. I think they repurposed cabins on site with welcoming beds and full amenities. Oh, thank God. Thank God my slave cabin comes with a hairdryer and an iron. There's at least one of these still around, but this is an unmarked photo. There is no information about this photo. In fact, the only time I saw anything that had anything to do with a person of color were these god-awful candelabras. But with this burning down, we lost a haunted wedding venue at best, and it seems like a place that was literally like Airbnb-ing slave cabins. So
Had the Klan in my comments being like, oh, you should be upset. What if Auschwitz burned down? No one's getting married at Auschwitz, you toothless hillbilly. Are you a freak that wants a massage at Auschwitz? Like, oh, their screams are getting rubbed into my back. It's so relaxing. Also, since when do you care about American history? You've taken it out of the classroom. The only people's statues you like would have taken black people out of the classroom, too.
I've been trying to figure out how to approach this. But if you haven't seen this used to be this. And this is the Nottoway Plantation home, or was the Nottoway Plantation home in White Castle, Louisiana. And just the other day, it burnt to the ground. The cause of the fire is still unknown, but as you can see, it's a complete loss. And the reason I've been trying to figure out how to approach this is because, one, I'm in Louisiana, and there's been a great outpour of sadness for the loss of this legacy. And I wanted to make this video to remind everyone that that plantation home was built by slaves. And the owner was one of the wealthiest slave owners in the South. And when the home was completed, I think it said he had like 158 slaves. He had over 150 slaves when that home was completed, built but with slave labor. Sorry, I've recorded this a few times and I keep going way off the wall and I'm trying to hold it together because this man, and I was going to show his picture, I was going to show his name. That's not the legacy that is lost here, right? Like, he literally was one of the wealthiest slave owners, had, I think at one point I saw something, he had like 200 slaves. When the Civil War started coming into Louisiana and heading their way, not only did he pay to get out of going to war, he left his wife and children in Louisiana at the plantation to try and preserve it. And then he took all the slaves and went to Texas. And then it was turned into an event center where weddings are held, and a museum celebrating Southern grace. I don't know, I'm getting emotional. And we're going to be sad that it burnt to the ground. And I didn't already say this, and I'm already over 2 minutes, so this is the last thing I'll say. There's plenty of videos out there with people talking about this. This was a sugarcane plantation. Not that if it was a cotton plantation it would be any better, but this man came from Virginia, where his family had cotton plantations, and he switched to sugarcane because of its profitability. And I think I read somewhere that he increased his family's wealth like 5 times over by switching to sugarcane. And sugarcane plantations were the worst kinds of plantations. They were grueling. The life expectancy on sugarcane plantations was low because they were out there cutting the sugarcane with machetes, and then they were boiling it down. And when I say they, I mean the slaves. They're the ones that built the financial backing to build a 53,000 square foot home with 64 rooms. And it was their labor and their skill that built all of the beautiful, intricate details of this property. And it was beautiful. It was stunning. But when it existed, when it was a museum, that was one of the things that was really controversial, was that they didn't fully, like, they acknowledged they were built by slaves, but they didn't fully go into what that meant. And then they continued for over 100 years, right, to continue to capitalize off of that slavery. So I think it looks fine. Like,
Can we talk about Nottoway Plantation real quick? Listen, I'm white. That's obvious here. But I am not $50,000 wedding at a plantation that slaves built white. That is crazy to me. And if you look up the history of Nottoway Plantation, it's actually incredibly heartbreaking. I just watched a video of a guy that was a tour guide at Nottoway, and he was saying that the script was so strict there, and there were things that he refused to talk about because it was so wrong. Like, they were trying to tell the history about Nottoway Plantation, but a lot of it was not accurate at all. I want to show you a picture, though, of this girl's post that I saw, and it was of Nottoway burning. And she circled all of like the spirits that were leaving Nottoway. And I just could not help but to notice one that I don't think anyone else has noticed. So let me show you. All right, so this is the post that I saw. It was on my FYP. And as you see in the picture, she was circling like all of the spirits that were being let go, right? Freed. I noticed something in this picture that I'm not sure that anyone else noticed. I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to show you. We're going to go to the top right, the far right column, and I want you to look at something. Are you seeing what I'm seeing right here? Take a minute to look at the picture. Are you seeing what I'm seeing? Does this not look like a massive man standing on the porch, from the porch all the way up to the very top of the house? Next to this column, that looks like a giant, massive man. I couldn't help but notice it. It was very obvious to me. But I'm just curious, what are your thoughts about Nottoway, the history, and its ultimate demise here?
To the white people that are so fucking mad that we don't give a fuck about that Nottoway fucking plantation that was just burned down, fuck you. First of all, why the fuck would we give a fuck about a plantation that our ancestors were slaved on, murdered, hung, beat, raped, and forced into fucking labor, forced to pick fucking cotton as they hands bleed? Bitch, we don't give a fuck that y'all mad. Let that motherfucker burn. And to all the people that say, oh, it's for the history, we humbly decline. Fuck that history. because y'all done played in our face too fucking long. Y'all talking about history when, bitch, all we see is fucking movies about slavery this. Oh, massa. Oh, come on, massa. How many fucking Root movies was it? Did we even need all them fucking Root movies? Write it down, take a picture, but we didn't need that fucking plantation to be standing that fucking long anyway. Thanks, Annabella.
So this Nottoway plantation that has burned to the ground has sparked a conversation online where you have white people who are so sad to see a piece of history, such a beautiful piece of history, burned to the ground. And then you have Black people that are burn, baby, burn, let it all burn to hell. I want to address that first group of people, the white people, like me, and help you understand that places like Nottoway Plantation, while yes, are part of history, they are not a beautiful part of history. What that home represents is not just a fun little quirky story about the history of our country. It represents the horrific enslavement of human beings who were treated like property and livestock. And their descendants today are allowed to feel however the fuck they want about that house burning down. Because it's not our job as white people to tell Black people what they should think and how they should feel and what is racist and not racist. And full confession, there was a time that I loved these antebellum homes. I moved to Tennessee from Florida, so it was the first time I was really around a lot of antebellum homes, and I thought they were so beautiful. But I had a roommate my senior year of college who was a Black woman from up north, and she really opened my eyes about how she felt about these homes and what they represent. And I had to change my way of thinking and admit that my way of thinking was wrong. And it's okay to be wrong every once in a while. Don't tell my husband, but it's okay to be wrong once in a while. I wasn't familiar with Nottoway, so I did a little research and looked up some articles and historical facts about it. And essentially, this home was built by enslaved people off the backs of, with money that was made off the backs of enslaved people. It was a sugar plantation. I grew up near a sugar community. Sugar plantations are fucking brutal. Harvesting sugar is brutal, which means that the enslaved people on this property suffered brutal conditions. They worked 18 hours a day, sun up to sundown, and reaped no benefits or reward from it. It all went to this one guy who then took that money he made off of their backs and built this ostentatious home. Oh, and I know I saw the video of the tour guide saying, well, he provided medical care. He had a clinic on site, so he was providing medical care and he didn't starve his slaves. That doesn't make him a good guy because he owned those people. And feeding them and keeping them healthy was so that they could continue to work. Because a fed and healthy livestock works harder. It's no different than providing veterinary care to their livestock animals. That was the mentality of the enslaver. He was not doing it out of the goodness of his heart. And for those people who want to be like, oh, but slavery's over, they need to get over it, there's no slaves anymore. Okay, then put down your Confederate flag. Dissolve Daughters of the American Revolution. Dissolve Daughters of the Confederacy. Because that doesn't exist anymore. You know, it's just history. Get the fuck over it. What I would really like white people to do is to let go of the monuments and memorials to other people's trauma. Slavery was not good for anyone, especially those enslaved people. And today, their descendants carry that trauma with them. So let's let go of the building and instead care about the people who were traumatized by that building.
A day after a fire destroyed the Nottoway Plantation house, how the fire started remains under investigation.
It's a day that we were always afraid of.
Thick smoke and flames rose from the historic Nottoway Plantation Thursday afternoon, a 160-year-old structure in Iberville Parish, sparking conversation about its legacy.
There's so much controversy with the past, but you know, in the generations that we didn't live in that generation, right? The main thing is the preservation of history is so important.
10 fire departments rushed to contain the blaze. Though parts of the property were damaged, the main structure still stands.
We will continue our investigation, leave no stone unturned until we determine what has caused and why this fire happened. No timetable on how long it's going to take. This is a large-scale fire, so it's going to take a lot of effort.
The mansion, once a plantation home, now operates as a resort and museum, drawing visitors from around the world.
This event here is gonna take a toll on the Louisiana tourism.
Several departments responded to help fight the fire. No injuries were reported. For Louisiana First News, I'm Kayla Gaston.
The parish president says renovations were done years ago, but sprinklers were not added to the mansion.
Right now, this piece of gold has landed in my lap. This piece of shit plantation just burned down. And it was a high-end hotel. And white people, I would highly doubt any black people went there to go get married, but they would. And now that it's in ruins, I say we keep it up. And I've said in previous posts, I would pay money. I would pay money to go there with like family, have a nice lunch, you know, take pictures in the background with this. But people should get married there still. More importantly, black people, mixed couples, fucking white people should go and get married and have that in the background. Just a response to the racist fucks that you are no longer welcome in this country.
You know, speaking as a Southerner, born in Georgia and raised in both Georgia and Alabama, and also as a spiritual advisor and counselor, when I watched the burning of the Nottoway Plantation, the very first video I saw, immediately my spirit felt relief, felt a release almost as if what I was beholding was a purging, a cleansing, a purifying, if you will. Almost as if the energy and the spirits, potential spirits connected to it, were being laid to rest and being put at ease, so to speak. And side note to that, before I say the other thing, I find it very interesting that people, believers, will get on social media anytime, you know, a big old hurricane disaster, this, that, and the third, and talk about how it's the judgment of God against the nation for, you know, not doing this right in Congress or not doing that and blase this and whatever. But when they see something other like this, especially y'all know, especially them folk, will get in the comment section and won't see nothing in that. It's just, oh, I hate it. It's such a beautiful venue. Oh, I had my wedding there. I had a party there. First of all, you are tacky, tasteless, and classless if you host a venue at a plantation. And that's coming from a born and bred Southerner. And speaking of someone who is of Jewish descent, I might add, that's like holding your birthday party at Auschwitz. Have you lost your mind? But my point is, when something like this happens, you notice you don't hear too much from the believers talking about, oh, well, that's a sign of the judgment of God against America for the atrocities and the genocide against African American people. Like, you don't hear nobody talking about that there. But heed my words, that's only the beginning. Baruch Dainemet, blessed is the true judge. I pray that those spirits continue to rest in the Creator's arms and that every individual connected ancestrally or in whatever shape or form that was affected, who had their lives taken or were abused in any shape, form, or fashion from then on down through now, because generational curses and generational trauma is a thing. I pray that their descendants find healing, find restoration, and find justice in all things, as in accordance with the divine will. Because there's absolutely nothing wrong with looking at them videos and smiling. Because I know I did. Just my thoughts. Love and blessings, beloved.
One of the last slave plantations in Louisiana burned to the ground this week. They had over 175 slaves at their height. It was used as a wedding venue of all things. That would be like getting married at Auschwitz. But you know where else you can get married? You can get married at Mount Vernon, where George Washington had over 300 slaves in his home. Or you could get married at Monticello, the home of Thomas Jefferson. He had over 600 slaves. We need to stop planning vacations around these places. We need to look at them for what they are. They are graveyards. They are graveyards. And if Black lives do not matter in the United States, then no lives matter. This is an obscenity that you can actually get married at a place where people were held against their will, made to work and procreate against their will, and then died there.
The ancestors of enslaved people must be so happy right now because one of the main symbols of racism and slavery has burnt to the ground. So I actually grew up in South Louisiana. I went on many, many tours of plantations with the person telling all about the history and everything about it. Not once did any of those tours talk about how bad slavery is. Not a single one. Sure, they'd mention, oh, this is where the slaves slept in those buildings over there. And this door they came in and out of, this little spot here, they could sit down and rest. But not one time did any one of those tour guides ever say that slavery was bad and that this building was a symbol for slavery. Most white people in South Louisiana are racist and don't realize it. I know I was one of them, but you cannot be sad about the symbol of slavery being burnt to the ground. You can still have tours of this, the burnt wreckage, but do it in a good way, talking about how slavery is bad, racism is bad, and how we need to teach our children and teach society what not to do. I'd also like to know about the African spiritualities. What are their gods? Maybe we can spin in a story about maybe their gods are taking revenge, burning down all these places. I would love that tour.
I found a video of the history tours given at Nottoway Plantation, so let's go through it. When he purchased a slave, if the slave had a wife and children, he'd buy the whole family so that they would never be separated. The purchase of an entire family unit, even taking the most paternalistic viewpoint of slavery, had little to nothing to do with just being a good guy. It had everything to do with the fact that they believed this would best reduce the chances of the enslaved people revolting against them. And in the village, he built a cottage for each of those families so they didn't have to share with multiple families and squeeze into one space. Again, this is not really about being a stand-up guy. You can really only fit so many people into a 12-foot cabin. And it makes the most sense to have children with their mothers. They could hunt, they could fish, so they could buy for their own food. That's an odd way to say that in addition to spending most of their time growing cash crops for the profit of their enslaver, they also had to hunt, fish, and grow their own food because, God forbid, someone should pay to feed them. They also built a hospital for them, and there was a doctor who would visit every week, and the doctor trained one of the slaves to be a nurse to take care of them. This wasn't about being nice so much as it was about protecting their investment. Right up until the point of the Civil War, the average slave cost in today's money about $30,000, which is a pretty significant amount of money. Now, one thing that we know now, and they also knew back then, is that the average lifespan of an enslaved person in the South was shorter than an enslaved person in the North because of the brutal nature of just working in agriculture outside in really harsh conditions. However,
If you worked on a rice, indigo, or sugarcane plantation, it was even worse because those crops are grown in water. So you have all kinds of animals that you have to deal with, like water moccasins, bugs, which bite you and also spread disease, and you're more prone to fungal infections. And make no mistake, training someone to be a nurse wasn't about making sure that they had quality care around the clock. It was about saving the slaveholder money.
Like the slaves were treated fairly well as a slave can be treated.
This is just a reminder that the only way to treat slaves well is to free them.
Yesterday, about 70 miles outside of New Orleans, the Nottoway Plantation burned down. This plantation was built in 1859. I believe 155 Black people were killed at the hands of the plantation owners. And because I live outside of New Orleans, I have a lot of local pages that are talking about this. And there's two types of people in those comments. The ones rejoicing that it got burnt down, rightfully so. And then the ones who are sad at the loss of this beautiful piece of history and crucifying those who are rejoicing, calling them hateful and all this kind of stuff. And I just want to remind all those people, their skin color looks like mine, by the way, in case all the people who are sad and who are mad at the people who are not sad, that you did not have this energy anytime Trump has tried to erase Black history. So the next time Trump tries to erase a piece of Black history, I want to see that same energy from all the white people who are sad at the erasure of this piece of history. Because you can't have it both ways. You can't be sad about this and mad people are not sad about it, and then be happy when Trump literally erases parts of Black history from everywhere. I also want to point out that this plantation burning down also happened about the same distance from a parish that successfully overturned desegregation laws in Louisiana. So.
All right. So, y'all, yeah, I mean, there may be some that are okay with this place being gone, but let's be real, it is the South, y'all. The majority of them are probably upset this is gone. I'm glad it's gone. And I pray the Most High will wipe even more out, if not with fire, with the hurricanes and any other condition that can really get rid of them. We don't need these plantations and stuff on this planet anymore. They're of no use now. And as far as vacationing, you can vacation anywhere. You don't have to go to no plantation. Y'all, the ones that are going to these places to have your weddings. And by the way, when the fire was going on, some of these white folks that had their weddings there were posting their wedding pictures online. So what? You're just a devil and you went to a hellish place to have your wedding, you know? And like somebody said that I heard on a video, may your marriage take its toll because you got married at a place like that. And it makes me wonder, all of you white folks that got married there, how many of you are divorced now? How many of you are divorced? I would love to find that out. Did those marriages last after you got married at a plantation of all places? So, yeah, it's sick. And I hope, like I said, the Most High will wipe even more of these plantations out. Hopefully, even with hurricane, storm, tornadoes, we don't care how, just get rid of them. And many of them are gone anyway, y'all. Not even, a lot of them have gotten destroyed. Some of them just got dilapidated just from sitting there and did not really get taken care of, and they crumbled and fell apart. So they're not all here anymore. Many of them are not here. But unfortunately, that one survived. A lot of them got wiped out during the Civil War. Many of the plantations across the South got wiped out. Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. I was reading they were having weddings, parties, events, and going there, and people all around the world were going there vacationing. Let's just say it the right way. White people from all across the world were going there vacationing. And, in Louisiana, they're already saying that this is going to take toll on their tourism. So, so what? I don't think you should be benefiting off of slavery, because that's what you're doing. You're benefiting off of it to this very day by keeping these locations open as a form of tourism and vacationing and entertainment. No, then, like I said, if y'all don't like the history and you don't want the history to be taught in school, then stop trying to profit off of the history. Because as long as these places are opened and y'all are going there like to have a good time and have a spa day and all that stuff, then no, you're still trying to profit off of something that should have died a long time ago in this country. And you vacationing there, you're just trying to keep it alive. That's why y'all vacation there. You're trying to keep the past alive. It's strange how in one instance you keep telling us to forget about the past, but you live the past all you want going to these plantations. You got a lot of nerve. You got a hell of a lot of nerve. Mm-mm. You know what I did learn, y'all? And I just learned this recently. They said the slaves in the North were actually taller in size than the slaves in the South. They said the slaves in the South tend to be smaller. But the ones they had, because New York and New Jersey, all these places had slaves. I mean, I know they try to tell you they didn't, but yeah, the ones up north, they said, tend to be taller in size. The ones in the South tend to be shorter. And I did not know that until recently. Very interesting. Definitely. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, look, I think at the end of the day, they were just mad at our reaction. I guess they thought we were going to look at this fire and say, oh, a piece of our history is now gone. Like everybody's saying, F that history. I don't need to go to no plantation. Y'all, mm-mm. When I go down to Georgia with my parents back in the day, I would see these houses. I would see them, traveling down there. But visit, I never ever in my life wanted to visit a plantation. But I realize many of you that grew up in the South, they used to make class trips out of it. So, you would have to go. You would have to go to these plantations as a school trip. So I understand that. I don't even hold that against you, especially if you were children and it was the adults making these decisions. I get it. And look, Black History Month, don't they try to take the kids to a cotton plantation and all, because they want slavery back so bad, y'all. They want it back so bad. And they know they're never ever getting this back again. This is never going to happen again in their lifetime, their children's lifetime. It's not going to happen again. So it's not going to go beyond your fantasy. Yeah, I mean, that's not Monica Gregory. That is not your fault if you had to go as a class trip. I don't hold that against any child. you know. And I'm sure the parents probably thought, okay, it's a lesson on what our people been through. No, when they go, they're trying to glorify those times because, see, in their opinion, those were the best times of their lives, y'all. They enjoyed those times, and that's why they keep trying to relive it over and over and over. Those were not good times for us. Oh, yeah, yeah. And some of the plantations are close together when you go down there. Um, I know when we were in Georgia, um, we went down this one. My dad, you know how your father and your grandfathers grow up down there and they know them back dirt roads like the back of their hands. Like my dad knew those back roads like it was nothing. And some of the plantations, when you go back there, are kind of close together. So you might see several of them in a general location. And then I remember one time we went down there in January because my grandmother on my mom's side had died back in 2001. And I remember when we were traveling down by car, I was looking in between the trees, and you literally on some of the roads can still see the slave shacks. It's just a lot of overgrowth and everything, but you can still recognize it. It's all in between the trees. If you really look, you could still see the slave shacks. Mm-hmm. And let's be real. If some of these people could get away with treating you like that to this very day, they would try. They would try. But I tell you what, y'all, I take pleasure in one thing. When those South Afrikaners get here, I am dying to see their first reaction to us or encounter with us. I really do. I think that is going to blow their minds. Because you know how many of them think. They think we're just one big old black person. What if they're like this in South Africa, they're like this here. And I hope somebody pull out a cell phone when they encounter them and actually try to interact with one of us and see what happens. I think that is going to be something to watch for real. Mm-hmm. So y'all, I'm going to go ahead and let you go. Thank you for being here. Let me give some thanks to the people that made donations. Quantum Solace. Thank you. How you going to find suspects to this fire when the suspects are shadows? Thank you to our brother Michael, the Archangel, for handling business that's pleasing to the Most High Yahuwah. And thank you for your support for my channel. Thank you. And Lisa Anderson, thank you for your super sticker. I deeply appreciate it. Hmm. Yeah, I mean, there were some really good ones out there, but like I said, it had the mainstream music, and you saw some had the slaves doing the fan dance. That was funny. And then I saw one where the slaves were just gathered on the lawn watching the fire, but all of them, like I said, had mainstream music. And then there was another one they were playing Frankie Beverly, Before I Let Go, and the people were having a barbecue out there. y'all know how to do a lot of things with that AI, man. I tell you, it was our people out there having a barbecue as the building was burning down. Yeah, I mean, that was something. Mm-hmm. But y'all got a lot of nerve believing that Black people should be so deeply hurt that this plantation went down. All I got to say to you, get used to losing these monuments. You know, y'all were up in arms about losing them old ugly, fugly Confederate statues that should have been down. And in my opinion, this country is full of crap. You don't let the losing side put up monuments. But racism is so deep in this country. You know, you put those Confederate statues up to stick it to our people. But I don't look at that, any of those monuments, and see fear or anything to fear about them. I think it's trash and it needs to come down. That's what I think about all your Confederate statues. It's garbage and it needs to come down. I fear none of that crap. And as far as your plantation, again, it just needs to come down. There was a reason why the Most High picked the largest plantation in the South and destroyed it and made you watch it getting destroyed. I love it. And I love the Most High for making you watch your beloved spa, vacation spot, wedding spot, okay, get taken out of here. All praises to the Most High. And shalom, family.